Okay, number 1, we have to find the negative solution. And this one we do have to solve by factoring because our negative solution is going to be a super ugly decimal that we can't turn into a fraction. So first things first, our equation has to equal 0, and it does. Okay, our next step is to check for a GCF. And we have 11, 19, and 6. So my GCF is 1, so I don't have to divide out a GCF. So we're going to build a box. Okay, we're also going to have to use our table when we're factoring. So our first step is first term, first box. So first term, first box. I don't like that color. Okay, and then I know for my table I have to do A times C, which gives me negative 66, and B is negative 19. So our goal is to find what multiplies to give us negative 66 and adds to give us negative 19. We can use our calculator by typing our A times C, which is negative 66, divide X, settings, table, and then remember our third column is the first two columns added together, so X plus negative 66 divided by X. And we're looking for negative 19 in our third column. So I don't see it yet, we're going to press enter. And I find it, so our two numbers are 3 and negative 22. So 3x, negative 22x. And from here, we GCF to find these two positions. So my GCF between 11 and 22, well, if we're not sure, we can use our calculator. 11, comma 22 is going to be 11. So here we're going to take out 11, and they both have an x, so we're going to take out an x. Well, between 11 and 3, my GCF is 1, so I'm only going to take out a 1, and they both have an x, so 1x. Well, 11x times what is negative 22? It's going to be negative 2. 1 times what is 3? It's going to be 3. So my two factors, well, negative 2 times 3 is negative 6, which is what I wanted. So my two factors, or in factored form, it would look like this. 11x plus 3, x minus 2 equals 0. However, I don't want factored form, I want solutions. So remember, we have to separate and solve. So we're going to separate 11x plus 3 equals 0, and then x minus 2 equals 0, and solve those. Minus 3, minus 3. Then we have to divide by what's in front of x. So x equals negative 3 over 11. Here's super simple. We're just going to add 2 to both sides, and x is by itself, so x equals 2. Well, it says the negative solution. This is my negative solution. Okay. Number 2, we can do in the calculator. Okay. Y equals the left side, y equals the right side of my equation, and type it in the first and second line in our calculator. So y equals 9x squared, y equals 18x. We're going to see where they touch. So they touch right here at 0. So I know x equals 0. And then I see it's on a vertical line, so they're going to touch again, and they touch again at 2. So x equals 2. So my solutions are 0 and 2. Remember, these braces are a list of answers, so my answer is D. Okay, number 3 is already in factored form, so we're literally starting at this step. So number 3, I'm going to separate and solve. So I have x plus h equals 0, and then I have bx minus t equals 0. Well, here our goal is to get x by itself, so minus h, x, well, 0 minus h is just negative h. Here we're going to add t, and then divide by what's in front of x, so b. So we get x equals t over b. Well, this has a positive h, and this has a positive h, so those are not my answers, and this is the one that matches both answers. Okay, number 4, it says, which of the following statements is true? I want you to know there are 3 answers. Okay, so I'm going to find my solutions because it wants to know the factors, so I can use my x-intercepts to find those. So I know x equals -5, and I go x equals -1. And I can get them set equal to 0 again to find my factors. So how do I move a -5 plus 5? So that means one of my factors is x plus 5 because it's equal to 0 now. Here I could do plus 1, plus 1. Now I have x plus 1 as one of my factors, so e. And then my other, because there's not 3 intercepts, so I know that this, and this are off the table. So I'm trying to figure out my a. So we're going to do plus sign table and type in 3 points. So I have my intercept -5. I have my vertex, which is -3, -12. And I have my other intercept of -1, 0. There's my points. And this is quadratic. What I want you to remember is your a is the same here. So whatever that first term is, so we have 3x squared, so a is 3. Okay, last one on the front, number 5. I have 2 x-intercepts just like that, so I'm going to set those equal to x because I'm trying to find my factors. Well, this one's super simple. Again, we want it to equal 0, so I would do -5 minus 5. Now it equals 0, so x minus 5 is one of my answers. However, when it's a fraction, it's a little different. I can't just subtract it on both sides because I don't have any fractions. So we have to get rid of this divide by 4. Fractions just mean divide. The opposite of divide is to multiply. So we're going to multiply both sides by 4. And I get 4x equals 3. And now I move the 3. So -3 minus 3. So this is my other answer. Okay, flip it to the next page. Most of these can be, actually all of these can be done in your calculator. So we're going to look here. It says which statement is true. And I want you to realize it asks about, it talks about zeros on all of them. So it's asking about my x-intercepts. So I'm going to type in the equation. And 4x squared plus 12x plus 9. And it wants to know my x-intercept. I only have one of them. And it's -1.5. -1.5. If I turn that into a fraction, that's -3/2. And this means it has 2 answers, and that's saying -3/2, +3/2, which is not what happened here. There's my -3/2, and there was only one answer. Okay, +3/2 is not, and it wasn't those numbers either, so B is my answer. Here, what is the solution set? There's 2 ways to do this. You can do it by hand. You set this equal to 0, set this equal to 0. So x minus 2 equals 0, 2x plus 3 equals 0, and solve. Or you could type in your calculator. Y equals the left side, y equals the right side. See where they touch. So y equals x minus 2x plus 3. And then y equals 0. And we touch here and here. So I know it has a +2. That one has a -2. That one has a -2. And then I need to figure out -1.5. So -1.5 of the fraction is -3/2. So my answer is C. Okay, number 4, it gives me the graph, and it's already graphed for me. So a lot of people are going to come here and we're going to find the x-intercepts and they're going to say the answer is A, but that is not true. And it's because the equation equals 6. Remember, I tell y'all y equals. So it doesn't want, if that's not 0, I'm not looking for my x-intercepts. It has to be 0 for the x-intercept to be my solution. This wants to know where y equals 6, which is here. So my answers are -2 and 5. Now, you could type this in the calculator, y equals, and see where they touch in the calculator. You would get the exact same answer. Okay, number 9 shows Melissa. Melissa's answering the following prompt below. The area of a rectangle is represented by this equation, where W is the width, so she moves the 10 over because it has to equal 0, and she factors, and she gets this. Well, I want you to remember that you could set those equal to 0. Or you can do this in the calculator and type y equals. So w, I'm going to use x squared plus 3x, and y equals 10. And I'm looking for where they touch. Well, they touch at 2 and at -5. But I'm talking about the width of a rectangle. Can we have a negative measurement? No. So my only answer is 2. If you chose A, technically you have the right solutions, but because it's a word problem, we have to be careful with those negatives. Negatives don't make sense there. Number 10. Okay, what I want you to realize is we don't see numbers here, and it gives me number answers. And it's saying which of the following would represent m of x equals 0. Well, if we don't know what that looks like, type it in your calculator. M of x equals 0. Isn't that just a horizontal line at my, it's just this. It wants to know where they touch here. So it wants to know this point and this point. Well, all I know is that to the right, this is going to be a positive answer. And to the left, this is going to be a negative answer. So this has a negative and a positive. This has 2 negatives. Those were not both negative. 2 positives. Those were not both positive. And I had 2 answers, so that is not my answer. Okay, number 11 says David is solving this equation by factoring. What should his first step be? Well, just like we talked about here, my first check mark was making sure it equals 0. This does not equal 0, so we have to make it equal 0. A term, B term, C term. This is also a C term because it doesn't have a letter. So we would have to do -8 on both sides first. So we'd subtract 8 on both sides. Now my next step would be to check for a GCS, build my box, so on and so forth. But my first step is making sure it equals 0. Okay, number 12 says which of the following equations has exactly one solution. Okay, and that solution is negative. Well, this side is positive numbers. This side is negative numbers, so I know it can only touch the negative side one time, which means it's going to be my vertex. It could go up, it could go down, but it can only touch this line one time. So I'm just going to type them in. Well, that one touches once, but it's a positive 2, so that's not my answer. I want a negative. So this one touches twice. They are both negative, but it touches twice. I only want it to touch once. Here it touches -4, and it only touches once, so C is my answer. And if we even checked that last one, it has 2 positive answers, so it's wrong. Okay, number 13. Well, first things first, it says using the inequality, answer the questions below. So it wants to know solid or dashed, above or below. Okay, there's 2 ways to do this. You can think about it the way we talked about the warm-up, or you can solve for y. So I know right away it's going to be a solid line because it's equal to. So just a reminder, these 2 get solid lines. These 2 without the equal to get dashed lines. I know it's been a while since we've talked about this. I'm going to solve for y, so -4x on both sides. And I get -2y is less than or equal to 12 minus 4x. And then I have to divide everything by y, which is -2. And because I divided by a negative, I have to flip my symbol. Now I'm not graphing this, so I don't even need to simplify, but I know my final symbol is greater than or equal to. If something's greater than me, that is above me. If something's less than me, that would be below. Okay, number 14, the linear data. It tells me it's linear. Okay, and it's asking about R and correlation, so I'm going to have to do plus sign table. So I'm going to type in all my points. Make sure your points are correct. You can zoom in on them. And we're going to change this to, or click our fancy button, and it is linear already. So it shows me my R at the very bottom, and it's a positive 0.99. And because it's positive, I know this is going to be positive, so B and D are not my answer. So remember, weak is when the dots are super far from our line. These are all super close, and 0.99 is almost perfect, so this is a strong positive. Okay, last but not least, which function best models the graph below? Well, I know my y-intercept is 4, and remember it starts with our y-intercept, so B and D are wrong. However, you could type this in your calculator and figure that out, so I'm just going to type them in. So y equals, I know this is h of x, I'm just going to type y, 4 parentheses 0.94 to the x power, and that is decreasing. This is not decreasing, so that's not my answer. So if I check the other one, that one is increasing. That's the only one that's increasing that has the correct intercept, so C is my answer.